So hello, it's time for another video. Just give you some of my latest encounters over the last couple months. So there's a lot going on. Still working with local medium here to develop. Well, she says my abilities are fully formed, but how to access them, how to use them, that's still an ongoing process. That's content for another video. Anyway, the last couple months I've been traveling a lot. Um, Two vacations. One, I was in Nashville helping to relamp the church down there almost about 3 weeks ago. I was there for about 5 days and I stayed with some friends, some church members. They let me stay in their house. So I would have a place to stay, camp out. So anyway, I get to their house. They had been watching some of my tales on video here. So if they're watching this, hello. But anyway, stayed in their house, very gracious hosts. And we got to talking about a few stories. And of course, I tell my favorites. And they made the comment that it's like, oh, we've seen shadows around the house. Like, okay, great. So let's see what happens. Anyway, so nothing threatening, nothing pervasive, just nothing scary in the house. However, so I slept upstairs in the attic was two finished bedrooms. So I stayed in one of the bedrooms. In the center was a bathroom. And I think this was all the same day, Sunday evening. I was there through Tuesday, Friday through Tuesday. Anyway, I think it was Sunday evening. We're watching TV downstairs and I'm on the couch and the stairs come down to my left and there's the landing with the front door and I'm on the couch next to the hall that starts and it's open space and we're sitting there watching I think we were watching Schitt's Creek. I also got them to start watching Hot in Cleveland, so we're just watching TV and corner of my eye I see something swoop down the stairs and then whip around the banister and then whoosh, past me on the left down the hall. I'm like, okay. And I didn't say anything. I said, okay, well, I think the shadow's here. That must have been it. So not even a minute later, that there went back to watching TV. All of a sudden, whoosh, right in front of me, over my lap, whatever it was, just quick blurred motion right across the front of me towards them on the other side of the room. And I looked over and they had no reaction. So I assumed they didn't see it. And I don't remember discussing it at the time because I didn't want to freak anyone out, including myself. But possibly two encounters with whatever shadow was in there. I got no impression of what it was. It was moving very quickly, whatever it was. Thought maybe it could be a dog. I don't know. But it seemed tall when it came down the stairs and then across my lap. It just seemed to be, I don't know, about dog size. I don't know. Anyway, we went to bed. And that next morning, I did not set the alarm. I wake up naturally around 6 o'clock anyway, and they got up a bit later. So before we headed back to the church to finish relamping, I'm laying in bed watching YouTube or whatever on my phone, and right at 6:30, I hear beep 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 beep. Some sort of alarm's going off. Well, my phone's not set, so I double check to be sure, and it's not set for 6:30. So I said, let's trace the sound. So I get out of bed, walk towards the top of the stairs where the bathroom door is, and the noise is coming from the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom. They had one of those battery-powered alarm clocks on a shelf up above the toilet, and that's what's beeping. Like, well, I didn't touch it. I don't think they touched it. I've been here 3 nights. It's never gone off before. And if you know those little battery powered alarm clocks, they have a very short hand on the dial face where you set the alarm to go off. So I pick it up, turn it around. The alarm switch is turned on, mechanical switch turned on, and I turn it off. That's the last I heard of it. So I mentioned it, and they said, oh, maybe the maid changed it. I don't know if the maid came in that week. Nothing was touched in the room I was staying in, so I don't know, but that was just a little bit interesting. Anyway, that was 3 weeks ago. This past week, I did a bucket list item. I got in my car and I drove out along the Oregon Trail. Starting, my first stop was Chimney Rock, Nebraska, which I'd seen before. Stayed the first night in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, and it's big, large rock erupts out of the end of the western end of the prairies there, and there's a big gap that the Oregon Trail, went up through. So the ruts are there. Modern highways kind of next to that. So I get there. First thing they tell me when I get to the park, and this is late afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock by the time I got there, and they say, well, there's a rattlesnake was just pulled off one of the trails. Someone reported it. We went and we captured a rattlesnake. So be careful if you're hiking. Thanks. I'm not going to be hiking. So I drove up to the top. Anyway, I come back down and I wanted to walk the trail ruts up through the pass, bottom of the hill there. So I start walking up. They have some reproduction wagons and oxen uh, set up there along the path, and it's paved for a while. So I follow the paved path, and it's obvious we're in some ruts or swales, as they call them. And to the right of me is the edge of one of the cliffs, and big rubble pile at the bottom. Since the cliff has been slowly falling apart, weathering like everything else, big rubble pile at the bottom. And as I'm walking up the hill towards the top of the pass, corner of my right eye, up towards the cliff in the rock pile, I just see this large black shadow appear. They're very tall, very dark, and it took me by surprise. And I dart my glance, I see it, and then it sinks down into the ground. I'm like, all right, I don't know what that was. I'm calling in all my protections of like, whatever that is, it stays here. Do not affect me. Do not follow me. Do not bother me. Nothing. So I finished my walk up the trail, found the swales at the top where it took a curve and then went down a very long embankment back towards the North Platte River. So I walked part of that and then came back down just as it was getting dusk. And going through that stretch, I'm looking to the left, don't see anything. So again, get back to the car. The park's closing up. It's just before 5 o'clock. And so I say, repeat, do not follow me, whatever that was. Please protect me. White light, the whole 9 yards. I'm projecting myself out. So that was an interesting beginning to my trip. The next few days, I worked my way west, did Fort Laramie, Register Cliff, trail ruts in Guernsey, Wyoming, and I got out to Casper, Wyoming, the second night. So I got there kind of early. So I went to Fort Casper, which was on my list. That evening, got there around 3:30, 4 o'clock. The museum was open till 6. So I get there, and they have a reproduction of the fort, and they have some. I noticed on their website they had some telegraph insulators, which I do collect insulators. So I wanted to see that. So I look around the museum, talk to them. They had some insulators on display in the cabinets from the original transcontinental telegraph line in the cabinet. So I said, cool, got pictures, went out to the fort, and it's, a stockade fort reproduced on the original footprint. And I'm going from building to building. My goal was to see the telegraph office where these insulators were in the space. So I get about halfway around to the first left-hand corner, and it's the stables. So hopefully I can post a picture. Stables, I go into the stables to check it out, and it's a dark space. There's like a front half, and then there's a back half, which is darker, no light. They have no lights in these buildings, the reproduced buildings. So I walk in about 20 feet to the middle of the first front half there. And all of a sudden, I get this zing energy. Something is there. I get a zing, and it was the weirdest presence I've ever felt. And I don't know how else to describe it, but if you know the taste of copper, it's got that metallic, sweet taste to it. This wasn't a taste, but this was the energy equivalent of that. It was just very sour feeling that came over. This metallic, sour feeling came over me, like I've never felt this before. So immediately, okay, spirit guides, guardian angels, mom, dad, whoever can help me here. Who is this? Why are they here? What's going on? What do I need to do? And the only thing I got back was the word cavalry in my head. I heard cavalry. Okay, anything else? So I walked further back, and that feeling was still there. I didn't feel it get more intense, but it was just there, and it was just in the space. So I walked back, look around for a few seconds, and then turn around and I hightailed it out of there. When I left the building, that feeling is gone. So apparently it's connected with the cavalry. Of course, it is a horse stable. That makes sense, but there were no names. I didn't get any faces, visions, nothing else, just that word. So I said, okay, stay in your space. Do not follow me. Do not haunt me. Go find the light, Archangel, Azrael, whoever can help that spirit move on, just whatever I could try to do, project the white light into there. And I moved on, got to the telegraph office, saw what I wanted to see, then went back to the museum desk and I said, has anyone reported any activity in the stables before? As I said, I have abilities. I sometimes see and hear things, and I got the most weird feeling of something present in that space. And he goes, oh, yeah, we have a few ghosts that have been reported around the thing. I said, well, anything in the stables? He goes, well, I don't know if anything's been in the stables or not. But I said, well, if someone else reports it, just document it. I felt something in there. And I think he made a comment to the effect that sometimes they have not ghost hunters, but they have mediums or other people who report, pick up on these things. I said, well, have them check out the stable uh, whenever they come back. So anyway, then we talked some more about the exhibits, about the insulators and the telegraph and some of the history of the fort, like that. And then, yeah, made my way out of there. So that was the second encounter of my trip this past week. I don't recall any other weird occurrences. I did make a trip too, as I saw when I was planning this route. I was stopping in Lander the third night, Casper, and then Lander. Um, so I saw Independence Rock, Devil's Gate, and Split Rock, and then headed up to Lander. I noticed on the Google map that Sacagawea's grave was about 20 miles north of Lander on the Wind River Reservation. So the Shoshone, hopefully that's right, the Shoshone Reservation is directly above Lander. So her grave is in the cemetery up there. So I said, well, I'm going to go see that grave, hopefully pay homage, for ask for forgiveness, whatever I need to do. I just want to see it and um, get some pictures. So I got to Lander around 4 o'clock, drove up 20 minutes off the main highway, a few miles, and got to the cemetery, and they named it Sacagawea Cemetery. And of course, her stone was there. Again, hopefully I can put a picture. But lots of graves, dirt piles over the graves, and lots of flowers. So they maintained that cemetery. And they had a statue of Sacagawea in the back, a little further up the hill, behind what was a chapel, Catholic chapel, missionary, and they had the whole history of what she did, obviously. And someone else showed up at the same time, told the whole story about how she had a son and an adoptive son, and then the granddaughter, and all the stones are there, even though they're not. She's buried there, but one son is buried out in the mountains. One to be buried on the reservation out in the mountains. So anyway, stopped there. There were some natives there watering, doing some gardening, pruning, etc. So waved to them, talked a little bit to them, but got some pictures of Sacagawea's grave. So that was very nice and um, uh, kind of fulfilling. Just kind of thank you for being here. Thank you for what you've done. Sorry things turned out the way they did in history. But anyway, that was an interesting part of the trip. So I'm glad I got to do that as well. So I finished up the trip, did not have any other occurrences happen to me at the time. But during the trip, I really enjoyed the trip. It was nice being out on the Oregon Trail. I drove parts of the trail out to well, I did a few things. I did the original South Pass, which is off the highway about 3 miles. Drove out on the dirt roads and had my bike for the impassable section. So I biked to the pass markers and saw that. It's just kind of interesting being out in the middle of nowhere, literally 20, 30, 40 miles away from anything. Ironically, I had cell phone service the entire time. So I don't know where the cell towers were, but I had service. I also then went to try to go to Parting of the Ways, where the California and Oregon trails split. Actually, the sublet cutoff of the Oregon Trail split. So it's where a lot of these wagon trains would split, and they'd be saying goodbye for the last time. So they call it Parting of the Ways. So it's 4 miles off a dirt road, which is 3 miles off the highway. So I drove out there and really got the vibe of the place. I put my hand on the ground a few times to see if I could exercise some psychometry, which I didn't really get anything. I said, I don't think I have much ability in the psychometry realm, but it was just getting the vibe, being out there, seeing what they went through, and how vast the space is there. It took hours and hours and hours of driving through nothing to get through that spot. So very stark, very beautiful, very reflective. But anyway, I was so relaxed during this trip. At night, I got a lot of interesting, I'm going to call them dreams. Um, Two of them were vivid dreams, and one of them was very strange. It was both the same night. I think it was the night I was in, after Lander, Parting the Ways, I stayed that night in Rock Springs, Wyoming, down on I-80 to drive back to Colorado. That night, first vivid dream, some sort of cult environment. I don't know how to explain it. It's some weird building, and people are for some reason like in this cult, and they're like worshiping some sort of. It looked like a big deer with the antlers, and then people start turning into the deers with antlers, and I'm like, okay, this is bizarre stuff. S word, and then snap out of it. Like, okay, that was nutso. I don't know what that was about. It's like, get that away from me. I'm not participating in that. But then later, I fell back asleep again, and then around 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., have another dream, and I'm in a castle somewhere in England, and apparently the dream is I'm getting married to someone in the royal family. And so literally I saw the royal family all around me in this castle. And then the queen, former queen, um, Queen Elizabeth, all of a sudden she comes up to me and she starts talking. And she said, well, this is how she's teaching me how to greet royalty. She's like, well, you do this and you bow your head and all that. And then she gives me the 2 kisses on each cheek, which I don't think they do in England, but very vivid face in front of me. And it's like I was sitting there literally talking to her. So I don't know if that was a visitation or not, but after that, kind of hanging out and getting ready for this party, I saw Anne and Charles, and they're all there. So that was extremely bizarre, vivid dream I had. So um, it's getting interesting. So I'm going to continue my mentorship. I'm a little bit more open, letting things just come in and just let it sit there and analyze it, not be afraid of it, unless it's very damaging, which nothing has come across as evil, just bizarre. I'm like kind of distancing myself from it now. So I think I'm getting to the point where I can observe, but not get sucked into it. So I'm not afraid of it, but just very bizarre things happening lately. So the journey continues as things develop. Of course, I'll keep you posted. On the other front, with my cousin's house in Connecticut, The Evil Thing in the Attic. Been working with the medium on that as well, and actually talked to my cousin. But that's going to be a separate video because that gets even more bizarre. So anyway, if you have any weird experiences with vivid dreams or anything, or you might figure what the meaning of any of these have been, let me know in the comments. But um, that's what's been going on the last couple months. So thank you for watching.